All right, so ladies and gentlemen, let's do 5 minutes on Benjamin Keene in order to help your understanding of historiography when writing your essays. Benjamin Keene was the author of our primary steering textbook all throughout the year, A History of Latin America. We read 3 or 4 chapters out of that as a backbone. And so some information you need to know to really help you understand Benjamin Keene is that he received a PhD from Yale in the 50s, and he was progressive and a left-wing student, and then he graduated during the middle of the McCarthy era, height of the Cold War. Communists are being persecuted in the film industry and academics. So this put him out of a job for a while, but it probably concretized and made his ideals more concrete. But we're not going to analyze that too much, but to give you an idea of where his views come from, or an example of his views, he's famous for this historiographic debate he entered over the Black Legend, this idea that Spanish colonial rule was very cruel, almost diabolical in the Americas. He actually argued with a Columbia historian named Louis Hankey, who said that people had gone too far. Spanish rule wasn't that bad. It was actually benevolent. They had a civilizing mission. They had their little white man's burden. And Keene said that actually Hankey had gone far too far in this argument, that the legend was black. So what we have here is a historian who's on the lookout for what might be called conservative revisionism. When things are more liberal, more progressive, they have been revised and thought through. He's on the lookout for people who are saying, you know what, we've gone too far. Let's go back to the orthodox point of view. So this is a good way of like thinking about historiography. We tend to equate revisionism with liberal thinking, and that's not always the case, and this is what Keene was on the lookout for. So we already know that he was progressive and left-leaning. We can put him together with Galeano and Zinn. Some other things you should know, and this is very clear in his writing. He is a fan of Marxism. He's a fan of the analysis-based school of thought, and he uses concepts that are based on these two, such as dependency theory and the world system. But also, again, he is on the lookout for the lingering influences of 19th century and 20th century theories like white supremacy from the 19th century and modernization theory from the 20th century. So, how does this play out directly in his book? I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you follow me when we look at the key text here. Dependent development shifts more capital back to the center than they can bring in. Dependent development again, and then direct reference to world systems theory, semi-peripheral relations with the center. Now, clearly he's saying that Brazil and Mexico have found that dependent development does not work. He is speaking against dependent capitalist development. His use of the word capital evokes his support of Marxism when analyzing such concepts. And then the center and semi-peripheral clearly show that he's using world systems theory. And this is how he discusses the Mexican Revolution. Talking about the Cuban Revolution again, world market demand for its products, okay? So clearly world market, world system, also the idea of the market going back to Marxism. His double use of the word suffered clearly sets the tone for the way he thinks about this. And then, if that wasn't enough, the burden of almost total economic domination by the United States. So here we have also this kind of patron-client relationship going together with dependency theory. But, and please notice the page numbers here. This is directly in the Keene book. You can look this up in the context for yourself. When he talks about overall U.S.-Latin American relations, this is where it really comes, it strikes home. So, the U.S. has sought to establish its hegemony, that is, to manage hemispheric events by securing Latin America's consent to a multilateral system of inter-American relations. Very, very clear that the first theme is the United States is out to protect and expand its own economic strategic interests in the region. Pretty clear there. Even more clear, and this is important, so take a look at the stuff in red because I've got 40 seconds left and I'm trying to keep these to 5 minutes. Beneficial U.S. tutelage, going back to the white man's burden. Developments of a virtuous democratic republics modeled on an idealized U.S. experience. This is something else that he comes to mind, but this blue is what I want you to focus on. In this process, according to Mark T. Berger, the work of historians and social scientists in Latin American studies has been complicit. So the things that I've mentioned in terms of white supremacist ideas, the idea of modernization theory in the 20th, his left-leaning, it's about trying to revise or to correct or to critique the works of historians that he believes have been complicit in also supporting this domination. Okay, good luck, guys.